The pleasure of introducing Luke Barlow, who's a Formidable fundraising farmer, and I won't go too far into the introduction. I'll let him talk. And Luke, would you like to come up?
Just that, yeah, rightio. Thanks, Joe. Thanks everyone for staying around. My story's quite unique, I guess. I have property with my wife about 15 kilometres northwest of here, predominantly dryland farming of about 2,800 hectares and about 500 hectares of overhead irrigation, which was converted from flood irrigation in the late 90s, I guess, before any government incentives. We could see the benefits of that in water use efficiency plus increasing our yields. So, yes, how does a farmer of that sort of category, who, same as you guys, we're predominantly winter cropping and a little bit of summer cropping and some sheep as well, end up in front of a room like this talking about fitness and fundraising and, as Norm would say, life be in it. When I was a kid growing up, that was saturated on the telly every night, every morning. But we seem to have lost our way a bit as we got older. You know, our ways. You know, our exercise become going out and going on a crop crawl with the kids. Maybe a little bit of shearing to help a few neighbours out. But basically, we spend most of our time sitting in these things. And that thing, and that thing. I decided there was a bit more to life than that. It was sort of back in 2016 when we'd gone through the Millennium Drought. We'd used all the best of our innovative tools at our disposal. We're using the best varieties. We're doing the best we can, 7 days a week, day in, day out. But our families are missing out. We're getting grumpy. And we're constantly getting smacked over the head at the end of the year, but we line up the following year to do it all again. And at 42, I said, there's got to be more to this. You know, what am I missing? Well, that's when my wife stepped in, Kate. She's been probably the main instigator of all this mischief. She was into a bit of running and she'd done the Melbourne Marathon sort of 3 times, which I thought was just a fad. You know, she'll get out of it and life will be normal. But I watched her go through the journey of training, then the finish line, and then you watch all the other people going over the finish line, and they're not dissimilar to me, you know, same age, same shape, albeit I was probably 115 kilos back then. And so when I was probably being grumpy and didn't realise it, she sort of subtly mentioned, oh, maybe you should go for a run. Well, I never even had a pair of runners. I've got no sporting background whatsoever. I've got no coordination. I didn't play any sports as a kid. You know, when I finished school, I was farming and that was it. Parents never encouraged it. Siblings didn't do it. It just sport wasn't part of it. So a lot of people think, oh, you must have a history of talent, you know, what's it all about? Well, it wasn't about talent. It was just about having a go. So I set about the task of completing a 5-kilometre run here in Echuca. Took about 6 weeks of stop, start, but after 2 or 3 runs a week, it was becoming a bit of a habit. You know, you could get that half an hour in before or after work or during your lunch hour. Didn't seem to matter much, but when I got that 5K out, it was like, wow, you know, amazing. It was like the biggest run of my life. Then 5K becomes 10K, and then 10K becomes a half marathon. And then all of a sudden, within 12 months, here I am at the Melbourne Marathon. How did I get there? Well, Kate decided she'd get me an entry for our wedding anniversary, didn't she? So she could see the benefit it was providing for her life, being I was less grumpy. I was seeing a benefit because I was dropping the kilos, I was feeling better, more energetic. Farming was becoming fun again. I could see purpose out in the paddock, but when I was training, I could see purpose in the training, and that's what it was all about. The thing that almost stopped me getting to that point was not the distance. It was, I guess, the fear of being judged by other farmers in that, you know, we're expected to work day in, day out, 7 days a week, day till night. You know, we don't muck around training for stuff. And it wasn't until I met a guy down the road, it was a neighbour. I was running one morning there in the dark before work, and he pulled up and he said, "Oh, you're still running then?" I said, "Yeah." "What are you training for?" "Oh, the Melbourne Marathon." And he just sort of stopped and he said, "You know, I really got to take my hat off to you. You're such an inspiration. I wish I could run." And I said, "Well, I'm a rubbish runner, but I'm just taking the time to do it." And he was a highly regarded farmer that I considered in the district. And he's the guy that I was afraid of what he would say to make me stop. But here he was praising me. So, you know, it was a hugely uplifting moment, saying, well, there's a bit of a movement here. Maybe if I'd start telling my story and stop running around in the dark and not telling anyone what I'm doing, maybe it might encourage some others to have a go. So I'm going to have to be quick, so I've slipped through a few of these. After that, I got involved with the local triathlon club here in Echuca. As I said before, what's the point? You know, I'm a pretty rubbish runner, so I might as well be rubbish at 3 sports rather than 1, so I've got to swim, bike and then run. And we meet down the river here every Wednesday night during the summer for a bit of a hit out, which is great. There's no farmers there, so it's about a day or week I've had out on the farm. We can just concentrate on having a bit of a hit out with our mates and a bit of a talk, a bit of a laugh. Go to a few events. Best bit is we can do it with the kids. Now, I've taken these boys to football and cricket all their life, but I sat there on the boundary and watched them do it. But this triathlon and this club allowed us to go to events where we could watch them and support them. When they'd finished, they could watch their mum and dad get out and have a hit out as well. It's not an easy sport. That's the sort of gear you've got to take for a half Ironman, like a 1.9k swim, a 90k ride and a 21k run. We're heading on our way down to Melbourne there. Pretty big day. You've got to rack your bike on a Saturday and then you're out at the race event sort of 6 o'clock. Sunday morning generally takes between 5 and 6 hours to cover that distance. Well, that's the finish line smiles. You've got to have a smile with a medal. But I'm lucky, there's Kate. We're lucky we support each other at these events. We can train together. We know, what it's all about now. Kate's heading off to Ironman, and there's a bit of a story to that because when you get to triathlon level and you eventually work your way up to half Ironman, you just want to do Ironman. That's the pinnacle. It's the biggest triathlon in the world. Unfortunately, Port Macquarie Ironman is in May, Cairns Ironman is in June, and Busselton Ironman is in December, which is pretty much our prime tractor driving time, isn't it? So as much as I wanted to, and as much as all my mates encouraged us to attend, I knew that I could never get to that point because I was always too busy on the farm. So I just go up there for support. But I mean, the next best thing is to cheer your mates on, right? I'm still farming away. I'm still sort of training away, but this is what it's all about. The sunsets, the final harvest drinks, the last load of grain. Then 2020 come along. I think we all remember that year pretty well. All the events got cancelled. Everything we had in the plan was gone. All the training was for nothing. All my mates are having breakdowns. What are we going to do? We were pretty lucky out here. We could isolate out on the farm. There's plenty of rides out towards Caldwell and Barlow. I can tell you what, it's pretty easy to self-isolate out there. I'll give you the tip. Down on the river, which is always nice. This was a photo from probably 2015, I think it was, and it sort of reminded me, I kept going back to it during that COVID time when things were going backwards and you felt like you were doing it all for nothing, but you had to look at it as a bigger picture. And as farmers, we don't look tomorrow, we have to look, we plant the seed in April, but we're really doing it because we want to get something out of it in December. I took the kids out to feed the sheep this day because it was a pretty hard day. And then, pardon me, then I guess what we got out of that was we were having a conversation on the way home and I said, tough times never last, but tough people do. 12 months down the track, the rains had come, the grass is there, and that's what 2020 was. We could easily get sucked into this hole that was, it's never going to rain again, but it rained again and we came out the other side of this COVID too. The best thing to come out of COVID was these guys, because the pool shut and we just wanted to keep swimming. So we'd get together, on the border. You all remember the border permits and where we were supposed to go and what we were to do and what we weren't to do. So under disguise, we could head down the river and participate in a swim at least and get some sort of normality back into our training lives. Now, we swam right through the winter months. That's frost under our feet where it, could get to below zero at the beach, but the water, could be 7, 8, 9 degrees. So it was definitely warmer to jump in and do that swim than stand out and get cold. And Garmin loves to remind you of wonderful things, and that's a Moama open water swimming, earned the badge on the 5th of June for doing something under frosty conditions. Oh well, record an activity when it's below freezing. I don't know many people who'd have this badge in the room, but anyway. Part of that swimming, we've got a really good connection of groups now, and so we do a few other fundraising swims, like we have a Good Friday swim, and just put some money together for the Royal Children's Hospital. This was a night swim we did back in before Christmas, and that I can't quite remember what the fundraiser for that was, but that was just a bit of fun. We put a glow stick in a flotation device and swam down under the cover of the moonlight. We're still in 2020. It was a great year, cropping-wise. As I said, as farmers, we could isolate a bit and our businesses were quite normal. But it wasn't all, the beer and Skittles. It was a bit of a late start. And I made the call to Jane Bunn. She was saying there was going to be a great autumn break, and it sort of fizzled out, and then she forecast another autumn break, which was in the vicinity of 100 millimetres for the week. And I sent her a message and I said, I'll bet you that I'll run a millimetre for every kilometre that falls over your forecast. And she said, that'll be like a 100k run. I said, well, I hope so, because there'll be a lot of farmers that'll benefit from it. So the run time came, and that's what you need for a 63 kilometre run. We had a 63 mils, and I got a mate organised. That was the course around pretty much our farmers at the start, all the way, ran into Moama, and then pretty much home again. 7 hours 13, bit of a trot. We iced the legs off in the pool and said, Sam was like, some of you'll know Sam Tillman there. He said, what now, Barlow? And I said, well, I still can't get this Ironman in, but they've changed it to September. And I think I'll have a crack. And he said, yeah, you should. So now I've got this Ironman program. I've got my coach all fired up. He's like, yep, you can do it. You've only got 2 months, but it'll be right. Trouble with training in winter here, you've got a feels like 1.4, the gusts of 32 kilometres or 37 kilometres coming out of the west. I've got a 4-hour bike ride to do, so what do? I point my nose west and just head into that wind for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It's about training the brain as much as it is training the body. This is pretty much a typical Ironman program. They sort of build up stronger 2 or 3 weeks, and then you back it back down, and it just continue, repeat. We got locked down again, didn't we? Port Macquarie said we're not doing it in September anymore, so there goes my Ironman chance. Not doing it anymore, can't do it, never going to happen. Oops. That's when my coach said, have you thought about Ultraman? You look at those distances there, it's a 10 kilometre swim, a 421 kilometre bike, and an 84.3 kilometre run. What do you reckon I told him? There is light at the end of the tunnel. He rang up and said, what do you think? And I said, look, there's 3 reasons, and one is, I couldn't possibly fit the time in. 2 is, it's right bang smack in the middle of sowing. And 3, I wouldn't even qualify once I looked at the details of what you had to do to actually qualify. There's only 5 Ultramans in the world. There's one in here in Australia, and they only accept 50 athletes per race, and you have to qualify to actually get to the start line. And then I come across this Ironman quote that in the end we only regret the chances that we don't take. And so, you know, he's saying all the time, you know, this, you just got one shot at something, do something good, you know, do something big, do something crazy. He phoned back and I told him my excuses, and he said, well, I've heard you three. And he said, if you stick with the plan I give you, I've done the race, I've coached several athletes to the finish line, you're better at long distance, I'll get you there. 2, you'll just have to start sowing your crop a little bit earlier, you know, just get yourself organised, get your farm together. I'm lucky to have a semi-retired dad that I could pull into action, and a guy that's worked for us for 16 years. So if between those two, they can't organise it without me being there, then what am I actually doing? And 3, he's like, you know, this is your one shot, and you'll get there if you just stick to the plan. So I signed up, but I still got to do this as my day job, don't I? So quite often during the program, you got a cheer for the day, a few Dorset Rams, no big deal. And then at night, you get to run with the boys down at the triathlon club, and you think, people say, aren't you tired of all the training you do? But it just gives you energy. For some reason, it just gets you going. Start list is up. Second, 4th from the top left, there's your name. Starting to get pretty serious when there's only those people in the world that are going to attempt this race, and your name's there. This is the finish line on day 3 after the 84-kilometre run. You've got 12 hours per day to do each event. So there's a 10k swim and a 140k bike on day 1. There's a 280-kilometre ride on day 2 and an 84-kilometre ride on day 3. And all the time my run's that bad, I knew that this was going to be my Everest moment, and I needed to get to that finish line and grab that banner. There's no winners in Ultraman. Like, there's no first, second and third. Everyone gets a chance to hold the banner as they go through. Everyone gets the same trophy, the same medal, and that's it. So the goal is grab that banner on day 3. Training, just eat all the junk food you can handle, just get into it. But the best thing about being fit, and when you're on holidays, you can pack the bike, little ride from Bermagui down to the Tathra there, 4 hours, 95 k's, a few hills, a bit of elevation. I can do 95 k's around here in about just under 3 hours, very comfortably. But I tell you what, 4 hours in the hills is one hell of a ride. Also, the benefit of being fit while you're travelling is you get to meet other people that have got the similar interest. I've met these people, they swim at 8 o'clock every morning at Burmie out the front beach. So you just join in and make it part of your schedule. Back home now, and the rides are getting a bit longer. We're stretching it out to 6 hours, 7 hours. The 6-hour one, I was quite lucky. I'd do my 3-hour ride on my own and then meet a few guys in Echuca. We'd do 2 hours out the big side, and then I'd take me an hour to ride home. Out here, when you go to, Moama, I guess you just ride on your own for a fair length of the time. But again, it's that brain training and the body training. First 200k ride, once you get to there, you think, only another 80 k's to go. Like any good batsman, you've got to raise your bat and salute the crowd. It was a bloody hell of a windy day that day too. Typical week, you're up to the 20 hour plus, you know, some big weeks, big loads. Rides are getting out there now, 220 k's, 7.5 hours. That was after a 4.5 hour ride on Saturday. You back it up with a 7.5 hour ride Sunday. But the good thing about long rides is there's a bakery somewhere, and you've got to refuel. Dolly's dream was part of the, motivational thing for me, and everyone was sort of asking, why are you doing it? And I don't know, I had that fundraising sort of background and thought Dolly's dream was a great sort of organisation to support. And once that it sort of got around, I was getting a fair bit of traction about this event, and there was a lot of media coverage and whatnot. So it was great coverage and exhibition of Dolly's Dream. And when we hit the start line, we'd raised in the vicinity of $15,000, which was just mind-blowing, really. That was that week, 4-hour 30 ride followed by a 7:30 ride, but I'd had an 8K swim the day before and a 3K swim the day before that. So it's not just training the legs, it's swimming, it's, you got 2-hour runs and bikes and 1-hour double run days and all that sort of crazy stuff. Profile pictures are out. Here I am at 48, attempting Ultraman. Like, it's crazy stuff. It's just crazy. Representing Australia, it was a multinational event. And I was the only farmer on the panel, would you believe it? So I was there to support all you guys. And, when I push over, when we put our mind to things, we have a crack and we finish it. This was the last long ride, knocked out 230 Ks and only 50 to go to make that day 2 target, and I'm well under the 12 hours, so the confidence is there, top job. Again, that was after a 4-hour 47 ride the day before. Last ride heading into Denny. It was a northeasterly wind that day, so I thought, good, I'll just push the bike headlong into the wind all the way to Denny. But by the time I got to Denny, after about 3.5 hours, the wind had turned around to the northwest, hadn't it? So it was a ride all the way back to Caldwell Silos with another headwind. Not much, not a great surface to ride on and not many trees to hide behind. I got back to the rest station there at the Caldwell Silos and pretty much had that moment where you don't think you've done enough training. What are you doing it all for? You're going off to this event in a couple of weeks and, this is just, why are we doing it? I just don't understand it. I can't go on. My body's full of fatigue. Like, it's just, you're constantly tired, but you're just fronting up every day because if you don't, you fear you're going to miss out. I came across this quote, and it's probably the same as farming. You either quit or you keep going. They both hurt, don't they? So I'm sitting there on the bitumen going, well, I'm not quitting now. I've come this far. Big swim, 8 kilometres. We don't have any flat lakes around here, so it's just straight into the Moe River and head upstream for as long as you can, possibly 2 hours upstream, turn around and 1 hour backstream. That particular swim was on during the week, or Friday I think it was. I couldn't get anyone to come. Usually I get mates to meet me at the downstream end so they could swim with me downstream, but I couldn't get anyone to come. And when I got back to the ute, someone's left this message on my tucked underneath the windshield wiper. It just says, "You're a beast, Barlow, Ultraman 22." Now, to this day, I don't know who wrote that, but it's a bit like the Dolly's Dream theme that I'm running with. It's like, be kind. A few little words meant so much. I'm dead on my feet at this stage from training. We're right about to start cropping. I think we were at that point. So you've got, you're managing your fertiliser inputs, your varieties, your staff, your diesel, your chemicals, and then you're focusing on, an ultra event. It's a few little words like that just really put a bit of wind in the sails. So it's back on the tractor, keep pumping along. And then we're off to Port Macquarie because my wife Kate wanted to do that on the way up. She's a bit of a nutter, Kate. The finish line there, which we all try to get to, the guys from our tri club were there in full support. The fella there on the left, he's done it 19 times, and the fella on the right's done it 25 times. Now, they're really serious guys, but great fellas, and Kate was in very capable hands. Having a run, a bit of a smile. Our swim is done, smiling on the bike, but that's when the pain train comes at dark. You've been out there for 12 hours plus and you've still got half a marathon, or you could be starting your marathon. But it's the smiles afterwards, and it's the times that you can relax and really think about what you've just achieved that are great, and we're on our way to Noosa. It was real tough to sit there and not enjoy it and pretend it was a holiday, knowing that what was about to come while we were waiting for our crew. There was another 4 guys from Echuca coming up to meet us. That's the breakfast where we meet all the other competitors and their crews. And this is day one where we get to sit down, stand on the beach, about to launch into a 10k swim and a 140k bike ride. The guy on my left, Marcus Brown, he's an ex-military man, he's as tough as nails. He actually won the event in 2022 and yeah, great mate. Alex, he was a 16-year-old kid from one of the schools there. He just rocked up on Friday and said, "Can I paddle for you?" So he jumped on a kayak and he had all my nutrition and food and water and whatnot. And every 30 minutes we'd stop and have a feed, have a swim. 3 hours swim. The crew, when you sit down, they feed you, get changed and get your bike ready, and off we go into a 140k bike. No problems. A few hills around Noosa if anyone's been there, because I hadn't, and it certainly took me by surprise. But I didn't know what was around the corner. I didn't know what was over that next hill, so you just keep pedalling. This is a drinks break where they'd rip the bottles out from behind my seat and put 2 new bottles, put nutrition in my back pockets and say, "You're going well, eat more, drink more." Every half an hour, repeat. I had no idea what distance I'd travelled. I didn't know what time it was. I just had navigation and heart rate on my computer. The coach is saying, "Stick to that heart rate and your big diesel engine will get you through over those 3 days." Day 2, 280k bike. I came in 8th position there, so I'm 8th on the grid. Pretty handy. I'm just going to have to flick through these. Again, I didn't have any idea what time, what distance I'd covered. You don't see any other crew. I couldn't see any other vehicles. So you just pretty much like riding the Barrow back on my own, apart from I had the crew there to support. This is Blakey giving me a special bottle. I had 200k limit, a special hydrolyte mix for the 200k mark, and when he held that out, I'm like, "You're kidding?" Like, I couldn't believe that I'd get that far. You know, I'm nearly done in my eyes. 9 hours, 280k's in the hills. I was pretty happy with that. Still in 8th position, and pretty stoked. As I'm getting out of the ice bath and off the massage table and eating 3 pizzas, the rain started to fall, and it just fell and fell and fell. We had 250 mils that night. We got up in the morning, it was still drumming down on the roof, and we just took off on this 84k run where you go down towards Maroochydore for 42k's and turn around and come back. Going past the Coolum pool, there were people swimming in the rain, and it was about that much to the top of the tiles, and when we came back, it was overflowing. That's how much rain we had during the run. We had a pacer to keep our food with us, and they swapped in and out between my mates. Like every half an hour they'd jump in and another one would jump out, so it was just hard for them. This is the rain. Like, it just didn't let up. We had fresh clothing, fresh socks, new shoes, everything in the car, but what was the point? You know, the roads just turned into rivers like that, and some of the footbridges you actually had to shimmy across the handrail, and you were in need of waist-deep water. And, you know, this is a running event. Pretty crazy. But we got there in the end. We got to grab that banner with all the crew, which is fantastic. And remember, I had 12 hours to get there. Well, that looks pretty comfortable, doesn't it? But in my eyes, I was getting slower and that clock was bloody getting quicker, and I was going to miss that opportunity. So you just keep going, trust your crew, trust your training. Quick trip through the medical tent, all good. We're good to go home. There's Sammy giving us a cuddle. How many blokes cuddle their agronomists like that? We've been through a lot in the paddock, Sam and I, but we've also shared some wonderful times out on the field, off the field, I should say. The crew up in Noosa, they're saying our goodbyes, and that's the one that Kate, the one that started it all, this journey. So that's how you get from a couch to, you know, Australia's biggest triathlon. You have someone to support you like that. Coming home, the crops were coming up, there's rain on the roof, and we've got what we came for. We got the medal, got the trophy, happy days. We can go through that. I'm getting hurry up. Yeah, to be able to go off I realised you could go off the farm, it still ticks away, and when you come back, quite often the people you left behind have done a great job. They got commended on their job, probably too good, because I said, hey, maybe I can go away again during so on. Dolly's Dream I've talked about. Fat Farmers is a group of farmers over in South Australia set up a rural health initiative to get guys active, which I'm happy to be proud to say I'm one of their ambassadors. So we got a little Fat Farmers group out at Barlow where we got everyone doing a 5K last year, and now we're doing a 10K this year. So happy to support them. I eventually got my Ironman this year because, as I mentioned, I worked out I could go off farm. And it was with Kate too, which couldn't have been better, the one who started it. Out the swim, pretty comfy, 3.8k. Off the bike, 180k, pretty comfy. Bloke behind me looks a bit sad. And for a time, I thought, 12 and a half hours would be pretty sweet. Well, 11:43 nearly blew me socks off. So, the training, persistence, mental attitude to just keep going. There's a lot like farming. And I'll finish with a little short video, but I just want to sort of tie all that together with the organisations that I work with the fundraising I've done, with the improvement of my physical health. My mental health has improved. Farming's become a lot better and easier. Decision makings are a lot easier. I intend to try and carry that fitness for as long as I possibly can. As we get older, we need to move more. It's too late when we can't move and we're told we need to. So, I've probably come to it a bit late in life, but I'm keen to keep it going. So this is a little project my sister put together for the Fat Farmers presentation I did last week. I hope you enjoy it, and thank you. Press play. Thank you. Thank you very much. I really hope you enjoyed that. And there's one thing you can take home today. It'll be when you get around, good people, great things can happen. So have a crack. We'll see you later.